So it's another scorcher today. I know that folks don't like my videos quite as much when I do them here on the porch. They'd rather me walk around and show you the chickens or the solar panels or whatever, the beauty of the property. The problem is the camera gets so dang hot out in the sun, and the selfie stick's one of those gyro selfie things that keeps everything level and balanced. But the camera gets so dang hot that the battery swells inside the camera and I can't get the battery out to charge it. So I rather stay in the shade as much as possible. I mean, it still swells a little bit, but not near as bad. I've been trying to make videos to show you the difference between off-grid living and preppers in an SHTF situation. And I think a lot of people are starting to understand what it is I've been trying to say. Preppers just don't have the experience, is probably the best thing to say, to deal with SHTF. There is so much that you have to think about that it's impossible to think about it if you're not actually doing it. But after living off grid for 2 years, you begin to learn, oh, I need to do this, or I got to do it this way, or I need to get this out of my life. For example, just using this as a silly example, I was talking to Carolyn this morning about preppers and electric. A lot of people want to use these solar generators, and I think these things are the most useless things in the world. If you're going to actually do something solar, just get yourself some solar panels, some lithium batteries or lead acid batteries, which is what I use. But lithium would do exactly what the solar generator does. But if you wanted to go cheap, you get lead acid batteries, do what I do, charge controller and an inverter, and now you have a solar generator. The difference is you can plug your solar panels into your house and run your house. Solar generator only can run a couple items, and it's not very expandable. I mean, once you have it, you can't like add more batteries to it or anything. A lot of people think, well, I don't need electric. If SHTF actually happened, I don't need it, because they didn't have electric in the 1800s and they survived just fine. Okay, well, a couple things to that. One, to find out if you don't need electric during an SHTF, it's kind of late to experiment to see if you can do it or not. If you want to try to live an SHTF situation without electric, then you need to start practicing now. And to find out, oh man, I have to have this device. What can I do to either replace the device or get electric to run the device? Because like this morning, I was telling Carolyn, in the modern day society, you have to have electric to run certain appliances. And I use this as a silly example. Of course, Carolyn says, well, I don't use one of those anyways, but a mixer. Today, you have to have an electric to run a mixer, right? Back in the old days, they had these little hand crank things. Now, you can still buy those hand crank things, but I don't bet that many homes have them. So if you needed a mixer and you don't have any electric, you'd be like, boy, I wish I had one of those old-fashioned hand crank things. And it could take you a long time to find one. So why not just get yourself some electric so you don't have to go out and replace all your appliances? The example that I was trying to use with Carolyn is our well. Our well requires electricity, the well pump. Now, I know that I've said that I'm going to try to find a hand pump to try to suck the water out of it. And there are some pumps that you can do that with. I'm trying to find one. I know I had one way back, 20 years ago, and I would like to find that one because I know it works and it wasn't that expensive. So I'm trying to find that one. If I find it, then I'm going to buy it. Then I can run, I think it's 3/4 inch PVC or 1/2 inch PVC. I can run it all the way down the well, and that way if we don't have electric, I can hand pump it. But Carolyn's right, that's a lot of work to get water. And so wouldn't it be better to sit here and try to figure out how to make sure that we have plenty of electric to run the well than it would be to suffer the rest of our lives in an SHTF. Yeah, it's neat to sit there and in your chair and talk in that grumbly voice and telling you how it's going to be done. I'm going to use a hand pump. Until you actually try to use a hand pump, you're like, man, that's a lot of work. I bet most people couldn't tell me how much water they use. I can, because I fill it up every day. Now that I've got the leak fixed in our ABC tank, we use about 30 gallons, 20 to 30 gallons a day, not much. Most people probably use a couple hundred gallons of water a day, it's a lot of water. They don't even think about it. So if you're hand pumping water, think about it, 30 gallons, that's 6 buckets full that you're sitting there trying to pump. A lot of work. So it'd be better if I could just use my electric well pump. Well, I have 2 well pumps. I got one in the water and I have a backup one that I can run off solar panels. Now currently we're running off generators just because it's easier, but we would get rid of the refrigerator. I know we can do that. It's not an issue. We've done it a lot, actually. If you think about it, we only go shopping once a month. But if there's a snowstorm or something and the freezer's out of food, no problem for us. We just start dipping into our canned food. We eat canned food probably once a week. But if our freezer goes empty, we'll just start eating canned food every day. And eggs, of course, we got the eggs from the chickens. So no problem with us, just shut off the refrigerator, and then I'd have ample electricity to run that well. So that's the kind of the examples that I try to bring up. But I saw a video, somebody talking about coffee. And in SHTF, you're gonna want to be able to perk your coffee. And he was talking about the percolator, and I agree, it's right here. I have a percolator. And we make 2 of these a day, and I will admit that I'm addicted to coffee. Now, in my past, I had to get off coffee. I had this flu. It was terrible, and it burned up my esophagus, so I had to get off the coffee. It was just, I was on fire. I was able to get off it, but boy, that was tough. Fortunately, coffee isn't the worst thing to get off of it. You're tired and you have a headache. So for about 2 days, you can sleep a lot and deal with the headache, but as long as you're asleep, you're fine. So you can get off coffee, and you can do it pretty quickly, just going cold turkey. But man, I don't want to do that again, especially in SHTF. Think about it. You got all the stresses of the world. You got to defend your property, you know, because everybody says in SHTF, everybody's going to be hordes of people going to come over and take your stuff. You're going to have security 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So going with that premise that we're going to have hordes of people coming, I can't afford to have a coffee addiction problem. So what we do is we have probably a dozen cans of coffee stored back. Well, Rob, you're going to run out of coffee eventually. Yes, we'll run out of coffee. The theory is right now we drink 2 percolators. But what we will do if SHTF happens and there's no coffee in the store, we'll come home and the next day we'll only percolate 1 pot, and we'll try to spread it out throughout the day so we're not so tired. Or if we get tired, maybe we can make a half a pot, something like that. That way we can just kind of wing ourselves off of it over the next 12 cans of coffee. Hopefully we can get off it quite quickly because it's just not really necessary. You're gonna have to be dealing with things all the time, so there's no reason to even worry about coffee. So now, there's my addiction, and that's how I plan to get off of it in an SHTF. But think about this, there are some addictions that are a lot more difficult to get off of. The one I think about a lot is cigarettes. I used to smoke, and I tried quitting several times in my life. I was successful once back in the 90s, but again, I got sick. I worked for a company that used a refrigerant in spray foam cans, and I had to test the spray foam cans. They made the spray foam. The stuff that you use at Walmart, you know, that great stuff. I worked for that company that made that. Well, I was an inspector, I was in quality control, and we would have to dump that out. Well, they had exhaust fans above your head and everything, but that refrigerant they used got into my lungs and settled down to my lungs, and I couldn't breathe. Had to have the inhaler, go to the hospital, the whole thing. Well, I was able to quit because there's just no way I could smoke. It was terrible. And I really didn't suffer too much. But then after that, a few years later, I started back up. It wasn't very smart, but I did. And I tried to quit several times in my life, and I just was never successful. Tried everything, you know, the patches and all that, until I got the vape. And over a year of doing the same thing that I planned to do with coffee, I was able to reduce the amount of nicotine I was using in my vape, I don't know, every couple months, until I was finally able to just get off of it. And trying to get debt free was another big motivator. I didn't want to spend the money on the vape stuff. So those 2 things, and I was able to quit within a year. I was pretty proud of myself. But I do know that there are some preppers that do vape on YouTube videos. They vape. Again, how are you going to vape when you're doing SHTF. You got to figure out a way to get off the vape as soon as SHTF happens. You don't want that day, the worst day of your life, and then you have to quit one of your addictions also at the same time. It's just, I don't think you could do it. You probably, something would go wrong. Either you would freak out from not having the addiction, or you wouldn't be able to do something because you're just jittery, wouldn't be able to defend yourself. So trying to figure out how you're going to do that. Now, I've never heard anybody talk about addictions and SHTF, but you got to learn how to deal with it. You can't stockpile enough vape or cigarettes to be able to survive the rest of your life. I was on a submarine, and I smoked on a submarine. And we would leave for 3 months at a time and come back. It was 2 crews. I was on a boomer, and I'd go out for 3 months, come back, and then the blue crew would take it out for 3 months. It was hard to try to buy that many cigarettes just to last for 3 months. I mean, of course, you're poor, and then you got to try to figure out how to store that many cigarettes on a submarine. I mean, think about it. Submarine, very limited space. So you're trying to store all these cigarettes, you're trying to save the money for the cigarettes. Of course, I was married at the time, and so we would have to put money on charge cards to get the cigarettes. That made my wife suffer because she didn't have that credit card on hand to be able to use while I was gone. And now cigarettes are, I don't even know how much they are. They're probably pretty expensive. Trying to stockpile cigarettes or make your own alcohol, I just don't know if you can do it. So it would be better to try to get off of it now. So if you'll click that super thanks button, I'd really appreciate it. So I hope I can inspire you to improve your health so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.